This is the first in a series of videos addressing the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. In this video, we'll be addressing smart decision making when utilizing stimulus funding and the unique guidance and reporting required by the Department of Education. So let's go ahead and get started. The Department of Education has established some guiding principles that they're asking schools to follow when making planning or purchasing decisions with stimulus funding. In keeping with the spirit of the originating act, spend the funds quickly to help save and create jobs. There's a tendency among schools to save their funds for as long as possible because of this perception that if I spend them now, I'm not going to have them available to me when I really need them. These one-time funds represent a historically large investment in education. All program funds must be fully accounted for throughout their life cycle. Your district or school is going to have to report to the Department of Education the plan for spending these funds, how they were allocated, what products they were spent on, the students and teachers they serviced, and the results of the investment. There's going to be public scrutiny of this stimulus package, the likes of which we have never seen before. So let's make sure the funds are going where they're going to make the most impact. Once again, these are one-time funds. Make sure that the investments you make are not going to take you off of a funding cliff. In other words, resist the temptation to implement programs or make purchases that are going to require ongoing funding requirements. Professional development, classroom technology, records management, learning infrastructure, these are ideally the best place to utilize these funds. The Department of Education is asking that you focus on student achievement through school improvement and reform. These funds represent an amazing opportunity for you to take a step back and look at your educational environment. Are there any fundamental changes that you can make to your school, your curriculum, how you get the community involved that can make drastic improvements in the way that your unique student population learns and achieves? Stimulus spending must also advance 4 key educational reforms. First, state and local education agencies must establish rigorous college and career-ready standards and provide high-quality assessment. There's an old adage in business, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. The Department of Education is pushing extensive reporting, recovering students, faculty, schools, all the way from pre-K through college. This will enable us to identify successes and areas that need to be improved. We can then share this information and bring the low-performing institutions up to a higher level. Quick and accurate reporting will enable administrators to identify those in need much quicker and find comparable successes and implement strategies with a higher degree of certainty. There are so many teachers out there doing some amazing work and having success where many thought they just couldn't have it. We must implement strategies that will enable these remarkable teachers to share what they've learned and help drive the success at many of the lower performing schools. We must also ensure that students we currently have access to quality professional development programs and the support tools they need to reach their maximum potential. When schools fall behind, we must make every effort to bring those schools up to standard, and there should be no sacred cows. There's nothing that is left off the table. State and local education agencies must develop strategies and solutions to quickly affect change within these organizations. Organizations receiving stimulus funding do so through the existing formula grant sources. It is imperative that these new funds be identified and tracked separately from the existing sources. For example, if a school normally receives Title I Part A funding and then receives an additional amount of stimulus funding through the same allocation, expenditures must be tracked separately to provide transparency and gauge the effectiveness of the program. The Department of Education is releasing a reporting template for the states to use. It will have all the information required for the states and local education agencies to report allocation, distribution, and use of stimulus funding. These in-depth reporting requirements are going to allow the Department of Education and the various state and local education agencies to quantify and define their educational goals and enable them to make adjustments as needed. The detailed reporting will also enable education agencies to mobilize support from the surrounding communities and the general public. As mentioned earlier, the scope and the depth of the data collected will enable education agencies to access data that can be used to drive success. When making planning or purchasing decisions, you need to ask yourself some questions. First, will your plan and the associated purchases actually result in better student performance? How is this going to do this? Do you have a realistic view of where you are now and where you need to be? And how are you going to know if you've been successful, or if the success that you have is even going to be sustainable? Remember, this is a one-time grant. Are the solutions that we put in place now going to need additional funding in the years to come? How are we going to go about supporting the implemented solution moving forward? And what will happen if we can't support these in 2 years? How about 5 years? How are we going to go about tracking progress? Do we have enough baseline data to move forward and actually make sense out of the data we collect from our students, our schools, and our faculty members? Is our professional development program sufficient to implement these new technologies, this new curricula, or any kind of new standards that we put in place? What do we need to do to ensure success, and how will it be communicated to the faculty members? Have we identified the participants who are going to advocate and drive this program? And on the same note, have we identified those who are in need of such a program? And once again, what is success, and how are we going to know when we get there? Adding all this up together, will this be enough to provide the change needed for our lowest performing schools? How will our solution affect the change? And what happens if we don't reach our goal and our school still underperforms? There are a lot of things to consider when planning, purchasing, and implementing solutions utilizing this newfound stimulus funding. If you haven't already, please watch our other videos in this series regarding stimulus funding and education purchasing. If you have any questions, please visit any of these sites listed on this slide or contact one of our sales representatives at 1-800-817-2347, and please feel free to forward this video to anybody you feel may benefit from this content. Thank you very much.